Hi, and welcome to Worth the War. My name is Kimmy. The purpose of this channel is to help prepare people to love well. If you think we can do a better job with love and relationship than we're currently doing, then you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about 4 ways that movies could harm your love and relationships. I know you could be watching a lot of channels, so I'll try to keep this as short as possible and content driven. Please like and subscribe. Our goal is to build a community here that we can share to our circles and we can help some hearts. So let's dig in. So number 1 is unrealistic expectations. If we think about the movies that we watch, they are supposed to be beautiful, great soundtracks, amazing costumes. But what are some of the things that we actually see happening in love and relationship that might just be setting us up for failure? Love as a spell is a common theme in movies. It's as if love is something that's just going to find you no matter what you do. And often, it's not even something that you would choose. It's against your will. It's actually not even something that you were hoping to find. Often, in movies, it's someone you don't even like. If you really think about that setting you up for finding someone and building something with them, that might be really counterproductive. Also, you got to think about, is love without wisdom really love? If you don't really think about the kind of person who fits well in your life, that you understand, that can actually live a peaceful life and it's going to be there for you when it's really hard, if those things aren't part of how you choose them, if rather it's something that hits you over the head, that could be actually really dangerous for your future. So be very careful that you look at what you see in movies as being a lovely production, but not something that you actually are looking for in the real world. Number 2, movies can dull your perception of dangerous people and dangerous situations. If we think about how many times in movies there are over-the-top gestures of people who are being pursued, who aren't encouraging it, don't feel comfortable with it, or even express that they don't want it, we might be a little surprised. In fact, if we took some of those scenarios out into the real world, they very well could be illegal. You can't just show up in people's workplaces, stand outside their homes, constantly barrage them with text messages and phone calls. Those things are considered harassment, and we can't glamorize them in movies. Other things that we glamorize in movies that could be uncomfortable or dangerous would be things like the way they portray arguments. In a healthy relationship, you try to work things through. Yes, there can be anger. There could even be sometimes where you need to take breaks from each other, but slamming doors, throwing things, and abandoning each other is not a healthy response to an argument. But if that's what you see over and over in movies, you may not know that, or if that's what you see in your personal life. So it's important that we look at and say, just because we see something doesn't mean it's exactly what we want to portray in our real world. The other kinds of things we need to think about is that consent is never going to be something just about sex. It also has to be about your dating relationship. If they pursue you, but you're not comfortable with something, but they don't ask you, they don't seem to care, that's a red flag waving above your head that you need to listen to. Over-the-top gestures are great, but sometimes they can actually be a sign that there's something else missing. So make sure that you are very aware of the kinds of things that you see happening and that they're right. Not just that you've seen them before, that you're comfortable with them because, gosh, in a movie it's all going to work out okay. Not everybody in the real world has a character that's that transparent. There was a research study done at University of Michigan by a Julia Lippman that I thought was really interesting. She took a group of people and she tested them on how they responded with movies and how their views of love were affected. She found 2 things that I thought were worth sharing. One of them is that rom-coms, people who consistently watch them, tend to have a more rosy-eyed view of what love is. They tend to think that it's going to find them wherever they are, it's all going to work out. They also tend to think that a lot of these over-the-top gestures, arguments, volatile things were actually not red flags for them. But when she showed them movies like Sleeping with the Enemy and other abuse or love bombing or domestic violence movies, they tended to have a different view of those gestures after. So movies do affect what we think about how we approach dating and relationship. So it's pretty important that we're careful about what we let inform those ideas and that we give them a counter when it's not healthy. Number 3, movies can encourage us to confuse attraction for love. If we look at the timeline of movies, it's almost frightening how quickly they can identify and are sure that this is the person who's right for them. For those of us who live in the real world, a conservative estimate would be 18 months is required for us to drop our masks and to really be authentic in a relationship. And truthfully, in the case of a disordered heart, someone who doesn't have a healthy heart, it takes a lot of time for us to be able to find out what they actually think. It's easy to craft an image. It's harder to live a life. So real love takes real time. We need to remember that when we look at what we see in movies. We have to be careful that if we rush things too quickly, we're more likely to ignore red flags. If we are in a relationship and we consider ourselves already to be in love with someone, as we find things out, our confirmation bias is likely to kick in, and we're going to decide that those things aren't really who they are, or that's just a small part, or they were just tired. It's important for us to be really careful. I like to say that there are 3 C's when it comes to finding someone that's a good match for us. You can choose chemistry, or you can choose compatibility, or you can choose character. If you choose the first one, you may end up finding yourself in a relationship with someone that you really don't have a chance to build a life with. But if you hold out, if you wait for character and compatibility, you'll find something that you can actually build on. Number 4, movies often portray singleness as a rejection. It can create a desperate mindset in the adult or the younger teen that believes that being in a relationship is what makes life worth living. The truth is, being single has some great gifts. You can spend time pursuing your interests. You can decide who you really are, what you really want, and be extremely focused on having a whole heart all by yourself. It's only with 2 whole hearts that you can actually build a relationship worth having. If you're enjoying your career, if you enjoy the things that you put your time into, whether it's volunteer work or relationships with friends and family, those things are valuable, and we should never let movies teach us that that time isn't valuable. The truth is, someone who doesn't love being single may very well struggle with loving being with someone. And there you go. 4 ways that movies could harm our love and relationships. I really hope you found this to be helpful. I hope that you'll share it with your circle so we can together grow as a community and help some hearts. I hope you found this time to be well used, and we'll see you next week.